What's up, YouTube? Brian and Alex back from Dopamon again, and today we're doing our own mock draft for the 2020 NHL Entry Draft. We're also going to be live streaming on this channel 7 p.m. Eastern Time on October 6th next week, and
That's a Tuesday.
we'll see how good or bad our picks were. And yeah, without further ado, Alex, you want to start us off at number one?
Yeah, let's see if we can get through this without trying to kill each other.
Yes.
Number one pick overall. I think the obvious choice, Ryan. I don't think you're going to disagree with me, Alex Lafreniere.
Alex Lafreniere it is. I will also select Alex Lafreniere. Oh, I clicked. Oh my god. I almost fucked up my whole recording. I clicked on his
That
name and
happens.
not his person. Okay.
I think you
Yeah.
can hit the
Alex
oh,
Lafreniere,
Jesse
easy number
Byfield,
one pick.
Lafreniere. Oh shit.
Alex Lafreniere, easy number one pick. It's the first back-to-back CHL Player of the Year since Sidney Crosby. He's incredible. We're not going to spend too much time on this pick because I think
Yeah, he's
everyone
the
kind of
package.
knows.
There's no and what I mean. Okay, if you really want to get into it, Jesper Fast is reportedly taking this chance on the free market, so there is an extra slot on the wing for him, in case you were worried that you didn't think that they'd give him a shot at the NHL. Just in case you're worried, there is a slot there if you're
Just
worried.
just in case they send him back to junior.
Yeah, that's just something we should clear up.
Yeah, but the undisputed number one pick for the whole year. Elite competitiveness, puck skills, speed. He's the number one pick. Easy. I'll start us off with number two. This is where the 2-3 is the only really disputed thing here, but I believe LA will select the German Tim Stutzle, second overall. He earlier in the year the second overall pick wasn't really contested, but over the last little bit, he's definitely brought himself into that discussion. And I've heard a lot of things about LA wanting to pick Stutzle, so I think that's where he'll end up. He's an elite skater, puck handling ability, and he's playing with men right now in the DEL. Last year, in 41 games, he had 7 goals, 27 assists for 34 points. And he's apparently added a lot of muscle in the offseason since the COVID break, so he's gotten stronger, which I think makes him a little bit more attractive to LA.
All right. For me, I disagree.
Ah, here
Right
we
off
go.
the bat, Quinton Byfield. I don't think he's the as dynamic a forward as Stutzle, but I think he has a higher potential to reach and to play more minutes as a center. His size and speed are just incomparable in this draft for any he's got the top speed and he's the full size. He just has to learn how to physically use it, and that's something that can come easier to him at being 6'4". It's easier to teach someone at 6'4" how to use their body than someone at 5'10". And that's the only thing stopping him from really being a number one center, in my opinion. And I don't see how LA can give up on that. 15 years ago, it was when Anze Kopitar was picked, and they have to think about who's going to be the big man down the center, and Quinton Byfield, I think, can be that guy. They have Alex Turcotte and Gabriel Villardi on center as well, but I think there's a nice 1-2-3 punch down the middle. You can have the next 15 years of really good depth down the middle for LA.
Yeah, Byfield is getting a lot of comparisons already to a guy like Anze Kopitar, so
Yeah,
learning from the Anze Kopitar will be huge in the later half of his career and and
absolutely.
for his development. All right, you lead us off for three now, which I assume I know what you're doing.
Tim Stutzle.
Tim Stutzle,
I
number
think
three.
that's a very easy choice, and for Ottawa, because he is, I think, the best all-rounded forward in the draft. And I've seen the same reports as you have about him developing his size over the offseason. It's that German engineering. He's a workman. He's a horse. He's out there. And I see a lot of comparisons to Marner. But I
Right.
also see a bit of the European game from Aho and Drysdale in there. And I think he's a complete package. He can score. He can pass. He's everything. And I see that on Ottawa, they'll want him to be a center, but they will say, hey, if you just end up being a winger and playing awesome, that's it. And I do see a lot of people saying, you can just make him a center, but I don't see him being a center. The best way I can put it is with Marner, who played center in junior, right?
Right.
And then, he gets to the NHL and you're like, just probably on the wing with his skill set.
Yeah, the archetype
Maybe,
of a skilled winger.
But because he can drive a line by himself in today's NHL, it doesn't really matter which position you play. You just have the puck and play the position that you're given. And he can do that on any team. He can uplift. He can play with second line guys, third line guys in Ottawa and put up 70 points. So I don't see how this is a bad pick.
No, it's not a bad pick at all. And I'll obviously pick Quinton Byfield for number 3. Now, I wanted to preface this at 2, but I saved it for here. I don't think this is where Byfield should go. I think this is where he will go. I think Byfield should be the undisputed number 2 center still, or number 2 pick, because he's a big centerman, but the reason I think he's slipped a little bit is because he hasn't quite grown into himself. He's a late 2000s baby. He's like 13 days or something from being in next year's draft. Yeah. So because he hasn't quite grown into himself, he hasn't learned how to use his size. He's a little bit of a giraffe on the ice, a newborn giraffe. I think once he, brings his strength up, and he'll be the undisputed best centerman in this draft. He kind of reminds me. So the 2019 World Juniors, Alexei Lafreniere was the underager. He didn't play a lot of minutes, but he played in every game. He didn't quite do, what people. He might have been injured, but he didn't quite do what people were expecting a future number 1 pick to do. It was the same this year for Byfield. I think the World Juniors had a huge impact on how people saw him because he didn't really do anything. He was,
he was relied on to be a third line center on that team, as opposed to a number 1 center.
Right, and I think that made a huge impact in why all of a sudden we have a discussion at 2. I think he should be 2, but I think realistically Ottawa will select him at 3. And if they do, they're getting probably a better player. Yeah, I don't think they're worried about that.
No wrong answers here.
All right, so for number 4 is really where I think the draft is going to start. I think the top 3 are set, right? Once Lafreniere goes, then the next 2 go. What Detroit does at 4 will impact the rest of the draft in a crazy way. I believe my pick for the Detroit Red Wings at number 4 will be Marco Rossi. Marco Rossi, he seems, just to me, I don't know why, he seems like a Steve Yzerman pick. And Fair. The other thing I want to mention, Steve Yzerman went way off the board last year, and Morris Seider. No one expected him to take Morris Seider where he was. So, like, if he, goes way down the list or something and screws up our whole mock draft, I wouldn't be surprised. Marco Rossi's a smaller player. He's 5'9", so he might get overlooked, but I think he's going to be the best player at this part of the draft. He's a smart, solid two-way player as well, but he put up points this year. In 56 games, he had 120 points for Ottawa, and that's so huge. So I think...
And you know what? He didn't play with Jack Quinn as much.
Yes.
So Jack Quinn's goal scoring and his assists, like those points, they don't really reflect each other as much. He was doing it a lot by himself too. It's not like a, relying on each other kind of thing. He is just that good.
Yeah, really good selection at 4. So Marco Rossi at 4, Alex.
And we were talking earlier about Tampa Bay having won the Cup. Congratulations, by the way, to Tampa Bay, 2020 Stanley Cup champions. That's should have been the first thing we said. The Braden Point. A lot of comparisons between Rossi and Point.
Yeah.
And, just won a cup. How you can't get, not a bad choice.
Who you got?
For me, it's Lucas Raymond.
Lucas Raymond.
Yep. I think he's a speedy mobile winger. He's got the full package. got a good mix of talents, and I think it brings a type of like a good mix to Detroit's future top six. I see like Zadina is a goal scorer. Velino's a two-way guy. Rasmussen's a power forward. You have, I think he could play really well. He uplifts the people around him. Raymond can play with Dylan Larkin. I think that he's that playmaker to tie it all together and just really uplift the team, solidify the top six. That's the forward core, and I think with that pick, like Moritz Seider, it's saying that Detroit's willing to say, hey, I want that guy. Does it make sense? No, but I think he fits what I want as a piece, and I'll take him with my pick. And I think that Raymond fits that piece. I think maybe they do want a center. I see your argument for Rossi, but I see Raymond just being that perfect piece right in the middle of Detroit.
Yeah, and Raymond actually he's shot up the draft board in the last little bit, specifically in the last few months. Looking at scouting reports from back in early June, he was kind of in the low top tens, but now he's people are picking him fourth. Like he's a serious option for Detroit now.
And I remember when I first started watching him, all I could think, it was the very first like a clip that I had watched, and I'm like, wow, this kid reminds me of Mika Zibanejad. He's picked sixth in 2011, and then it clicked, and I'm like, Lucas Raymond plays for Lunda, and Mika Zibanejad came from the same team, and I don't know if it's the same play style or from the thing. I really like his game. I think he's going to be a top forward one day, and Detroit's going to love him.
Fantastic. All right, moving on to Ottawa's second pick.
Okay.
5th overall.
On me, right?
Yep, we're all noticing you got the Ottawa colors.
Yep, and I'm very excited for this pick. Jamie Drysdale. Okay, you that right-handed D. It's exactly what you need in the NHL today. That's everybody's looking for one, and who better to play with Chabot than a guy who has just this elite, beautiful skating. He might be the best skater in the entire draft. I think that, like, for Ottawa, I've seen a lot of people saying, hey, you have Wolanin's ready, Brandstrom's ready, Lajoie's ready, Jarosz is ready. Why would you need Drysdale? And it's like, yeah, these guys they're good, but they're not top 2D good. They're bottom 4 good. And to let them fill into their depth roles, have a nice number 1, number 2 with Drysdale and Chabot, then your second line can, D Brandstrom and Zaitsev or something, then who cares? Like, that's just, you're set on D when you have Drysdale for Ottawa, and in the position they're in for a rebuild, he's a guy that's a D core that you can really build around.
And I will jump in here as well and say that I have also selected Jamie Drysdale at the 5th overall pick for Ottawa. I think it's a no-brainer at that position. With 2 picks in the top 5, you can take an elite center in Byfield or Stutzle, and then an elite D. Drysdale is the best defenseman in the draft. I know people are talking a little bit about some other guys, a little bit of Jake Sanderson thrown in there, but Drysdale is the undisputed best defenseman in the draft.
All-rounded, yeah. He's got the speed, both ends, both zones, and you'd think for a smaller guy, he doesn't have like the elite offensive talent, like he's no like Erik Karlsson, but he makes up for that in just being the best all-round D.
Yes.
Which is a very similar play to Chabot, who's a very well-rounded D, who's not just offense. Like, I think they could mesh really well together.
Yeah, I think another thing about Drysdale, he doesn't have to step into Ottawa and run a power play. Chabot's already there. He's going to be able to, and Brandstrom too. He's going to be able to jump in and really play well with the core that Ottawa is building on defense. And I think number 5 is probably the pick I'm most confident with, other than Alexis Lafreniere at this point in the draft.
The only 2 that we're probably going to get the same.
Yeah. I'm happy that we haven't had any really similar picks so far. We've only got 2 of 5. I'm happy about that. All right, 6 is me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, Anaheim Ducks. I have selected Lucas Raymond. Lucas Raymond, like you said, a great playmaker, more of a playmaker than a goal scorer, it seems. Played really well in Frölunda last year, 33 games, 10 points. Uh, Playing with men though, so like the stats maybe a little bit smaller than if he was playing over here or in US, obviously. Uh, Getting comparisons to Mitch Marner, I've seen a lot of Mitch Marner comparisons because of he's on the smaller side and he's skilled and he's a playmaker. That's kind of like the Mitch Marner archetype.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot of those comparisons, and I think Anaheim would jump at the chance to select Raymond here. Anaheim really needs to start building up their prospect cupboard again. A little bit bare recently. They have a couple guys, but I think Raymond will be probably their best prospect at this point if they select him. I don't think I'm forgetting anybody. If I am, let me know in the comments if I'm forgetting someone obvious in Anaheim. But I think Anaheim's safe pick to pick Raymond there if he drops to them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more about Anaheim's prospect pool really drying up. That's the only guy I see that is in their prospect pool for forwards is Trevor Zegras, who's
Yeah,
I think stepping up could be a number one, number two center, but not
yeah,
a
Zagras, Sam Steele. I'm trying to think. There's a couple
and Sam. That's
forwards.
the other guy I have marked, but he's already playing on the roster. He does have I think he's a good kid, Sam Steele. I we could see a lot more from him. So for my pick, I thought I'm gonna go with Alexander Holtz.
Holtz at 6, eh?
Holtz at 6. No, the Anaheim Ducks were 29th in goals for last season. They suck. They just don't have any. They don't have any goal scoring. They got nothing going for them, and they have no goal scorers in their depth charts. They just who's gonna score?
Yeah.
You have Getzlaf can pass. Who's gonna score? Who's gonna put the puck in the net? And Anaheim needs someone who can put the puck in the net, and Alexander Holtz can put the puck in the net. I think he's
Absolutely.
as far as just like shot and goal, I think he might be the best in this draft.
Yeah, best pure goal scorer. I could see that for sure.
Yeah. And that's to make them 28th in goal scoring next year, even just something to like just somebody who can put the puck in the net, and I think I think he could.
Do you think Holtz can jump into the NHL next season, or is he gonna have to wait?
I think you'll have to wait at least 1 year.
I
But
think so too, just based on like because the season I think is gonna be soon,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
gonna be in December or January. I think because of that, it's gonna kind of kick everyone over. But I don't know what the status of the junior leagues is gonna be. Might be a little weird,
Fair,
so maybe
of
they'll
course.
bring him up. I don't know. We'll
And
see.
though I see him at the end of everybody on this list career having the highest goal total.
Nice, interesting. All right, moving on to 7, Alex. Who you got?
All right. For me, I'm going now Anaheim Ducks were 29th in scoring, so I'm gonna another stat for you. The New Jersey Devils were tied with Florida for third worst in goals against.
Ooh,
They suck.
yeah,
So I have them taking Jake Sanderson.
very good.
It's like, yep, I think Sanderson's good. Maybe he should do. I have him ranked a little bit lower, but this draft there are not a lot of good defensive prospects, and I think that makes them because they're more rare, more valuable. People might take them a little bit higher, and I think New Jersey's a team that could look at their D and say, hey, we only have they do have some promising D, but much like Ottawa, they're more bottom four roles, and you can let them fill into that role instead of putting the pressure on them. Have a big guy like Jake Sanderson who he's amazing in both zones. He's up there with Drysdale as potentially the best D in the draft. There aren't any holes in his game that stand out or front, and I think that playing with New Jersey that could really uplift them for a team that gets scored on way too much.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in here and say I also have Jake Sanderson going for the Devils at 7. Because New Jersey has 3 picks in the first round, I think they'll take Sanderson here at 7 because they could get like a scoring playmaker. There's options for them down in the late teen. I think the 18 and 20, right? There's options for them down there that aren't defensemen. Like, sure, I could go with a guy like Holtz here. I could go with a guy like Jack Quinn or Lundell, but I think Jake Sanderson's a really good pick for the Devil. I almost said Detroit. The Devils here. He's a strong skater, like you said. A little offensive upside, but he projects to be more of a top 2 or top 3, more of a shutdown defenseman. Even for his size, he's an incredible skater. He's the son of former NHL player Jeff Sanderson, who was one of the fastest players in his time. So his skating, takes after his dad that way. Some people actually have him ranked higher than Drysdale, which I'm a little bit shocked about. So that kind of gives you a sense of what people think about this player, and I think at 7, I wouldn't be shocked if New Jersey takes him.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, number 8. I gotta flip my notes here. Number 8. So Buffalo, I think, is kind of the lower end of the crazy stuff that's happening in the middle of this top 10. If this player drops to Buffalo, they will be ecstatic, and that is Cole Perfetti. Cole Perfetti, I watched, like, the first time I saw him play was at the Ivan Holinka last year, and I was just blown away. He's an amazing shooter, but he had 74 assists in 61 games for the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL last year. So he's kind of developed into like a playmaker as well, but he has an elite shot. And putting him on the wing of someone like Jack Eichel will be incredible for Buffalo. They'll be absolutely ecstatic that Cole Perfetti dropped to them. I've seen a lot of scouts rank him for like a Detroit pick, so I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit picked him also. So like that's what I mean by this middle of the draft is so crazy. Any one of these players can go in any of these positions. There's no undisputed number 4, 5, and 6. It's all over the place right now. And if Cole Perfetti drops to Buffalo, I think they'll be super happy with that.
All right, and I'm gonna agree.
Nice.
I have Cole Perfetti for Buffalo as well. But for me, what makes this stand out is that I still have Marco Rossi on the board.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I have him at 4.
This was a really, really tough call for me because I think Rossi has more raw offensive talent. But I think Perfetti's a bit of a better leader both on and off the ice. He provides a little bit better of a two-way game, and he played alone a lot of last season. He wasn't on as good of a team as Marco Rossi, and I think someone who can like lead a line, really be a presence in that locker room. Buffalo needs to like bite down and say, hey, we need this kid over Rossi, who might score a lot more points, especially with someone like Jeff Skinner. Sorry,
Jeff Skinner, the winger.
I've been watching a lot of TV recently, but he play a lot with Jeff Skinner. But I think Cole Perfetti just has this thing that behind Jack Eichel, number 2 kind of forward on this team, who's just so good, brings everybody around him and takes a lot of pressure off of Jack Eichel of being the number 1 center and being that guy all the time and saying, hey, gives me a reason to stick around.
Yeah, you have him, like you're saying, center. I have him more projected as a winger, but he has played a lot of center.
Yeah, he's played both. He can play both, and if he plays second with Skinner, first with Eichel, it can go. I think he's just a really good fit for the team.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to number 9.
Yeah, because that's me, right?
That's you.
After that, Marco Rossi, because this is it's hard to argue against someone with such elite playmaking, and I compare him to Braden Point, who just won a Stanley Cup, and I think that's just can't go wrong. Hard to pick wrong with this one. I think Minnesota's been known to take in their top 10 has been known to take playmaking centers like Mikko Koivu, Michael Granlund, even Pierre-Marc Bouchard and James Shepard. And like with Koivu's career coming to an end, Stahl's been traded. I don't know if Marcus Johansson's going to play on the center. I see them wanting another center, because they don't have any. And that's Marco Rossi.
Yep, it's I would if Rossi drops all the way to 9, I can't see
Yeah.
Minnesota passing on.
Yeah, it's hard for me to make an argue against for anything else here, because I just think everybody else, they're all so good, but the way they fit, that puts Rossi at 9.
Yeah,
And
Rossi at 9 is the biggest difference between you and me right now.
Yeah,
I have him at all the way at 4, so that's a huge disparity there. I'm curious.
Yeah.
We're excited to see where he actually drops.
Where he actually goes, yeah,
where he actually goes in the actual draft. We'll compare where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if we're good to move on. Number 9 for me for Minnesota, I have Alexander Holtz going for number 9. Minnesota's game has always been really defensive. Every time I see Minnesota play, it's so hard for me to watch. They play that suffocating defensive kind of weird trap style from the early 2000s. Putting a guy like Alexander Holtz in there gives them a huge weapon offensively that I don't think they currently have. They don't have a shooter of Holtz's caliber on their team. And putting him in that lineup, I think, would help Minnesota just drastically. And he's definitely the best player in the draft at this point for me at number 9.
Now at this point, taking all the same 9 guys.
I think so. I don't think there's anybody else.
Yeah, I think the top 9 has been fairly undisputed.
Yeah.
Outside of Askarov as a goalie, because that's just impossible to rank. It's for skaters.
Yeah, I'm curious where you have him, because he could go anywhere between like 5 and 25 for me. Like he's such an enigma.
He could go in the second round.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Superstition,
Yeah.
It could happen.
Anyway, number 10, that's me. Number 10, I have the Winnipeg Jets selecting Jack Quinn. Now, did I say Minnesota again? The Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets selecting Jack Quinn. So, if Jake Sanderson drops to Winnipeg, Winnipeg will absolutely take him. They need defensemen right now. They have almost nobody on defense. But right now, I don't think you can go deeper into the draft to select for position. I think you have to select best player available, and I think that's Jack Quinn at this point in my draft. He's one of the best goal scorers in this part of the draft. Probably just a little bit behind Alexander Holtz. That's why I have Holtz going before Quinn. He had 89 points in 62 games, but 52 goals. So he's an incredible shooter. Played in Ottawa. Like you said, he didn't play all the time with Marco Rossi, but they definitely got some time together. So we'll see how much that affected Quinn's stats. If one of them plays in junior and maybe Rossi's in the NHL, we'll see how he fares on his own. Yeah, I think this is honestly we didn't do this, but this is honestly a pick that could be traded in my eyes because of Winnipeg's immense need for defense. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded this pick. Like if it was working out that they could a team wanted to get Quinn and they could get a top 4 defenseman maybe for this pick and something else. We didn't go through that because that's way too complicated. I'm not going to start predicting trades in a mock draft.
Yeah,
but
forgot to mention that we're going to assume there are no trades.
Yeah, we are assuming there are no trades and the picks will remain the same. But yeah, Jack Quinn at 10.
All right. For me at 10, I'm guessing that Winnipeg takes Anton Lundell. Now, Winnipeg is another team. They don't just like Minnesota. I think they're lacking center depth behind Mark Scheifele. They need someone better than Cody Eakin or Jack Roslovic. Now that Brian Little's career is taken a turn, he's either coming to an end or he's too injured to play. And if he does come back, they're big question marks. And I think there are huge trade rumors surrounding Patrick Laine, but I think like Winnipeg would rather like solidify their top 6 than trade such a big asset out for smaller pieces, and they just finished like grooming him into like a complete winger. This year he really stood out as someone who played both ends. He did, there was defensively responsible, shooting when he needs to be, unselfish play, and now's the time you keep him, not trade him away. They put all this into him. I think Ehlers is probably a bigger trade bait, than he is. And with a guy like Anton Lundell, he won't be an NHL player immediately, but I think Winnipeg can maybe make a deal, sign a free agent like Michael Granlund, who's not no longer going to be playing for Nashville. Cody Eakin, who might not play for Vegas, Carl Soderberg from Arizona, Zemgus Jorgensen from Buffalo. They're all going to be free agents that I think Winnipeg could go after on a short, cheap deal and solidify that center spot to play with Laine, as opposed to make a trade to get rid of him. And then in 2-3 years, when that contract's over, have Anton Lundell play with him. And I think that could be an amazing combo. 2 Finnish players, both with an offensive upside, and that would solidify their top 6 as a playoff contender. And Lundell himself, he's a great two-way forward. I compare him a lot to Anze Kopitar. I know there's a lot for Byfield as well, but I think that he's grown into his body and he has all the tools, but lacks a little bit of speed. And that's the same thing that was said about Kopitar in his draft. And I think being overlooked, this guy could be a second line center and maybe just as good as any of the guys above him.
Yeah, I love Anton Lundell. I have him coming up soon. I'm not going to say where, but he's definitely a player I could see, going top 10. He's definitely a guy I could sneak in there.
Forgot to click on him on my. There we go.
No. All right, you lead us for 11, Nashville.
Oh, that's me. All right. Think really long and hard about this one. I think they're going to go with Askarov. I think Nashville's going to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
Rene's getting older, and he's going to be the backup. And I like Saros, but I like him more as being either a 1A, 1B, not a starter. I don't think he's got 60, 65 games in him. And with a guy like Askarov, who, if with the KHL that's been playing, he's their number 1 goalie on his KHL team right now. He is on fire. He is I think he's ready for some NHL time. Maybe as a third, like a 3 goalie rotation, maybe he bumps out Rene. But within, by like the end of next year, he could be a starting goalie for Nashville and make Saros that 1B again.
Yep, I 100% agree with you. I have Yaroslav Askarov being taken by the Nashville Predators here. For all the same reasons you said, he's killing it right now. And I think Nashville is the first realistic team that would take him at 11. If he gets there, I don't think he'll drop past, because David Poile, GM of the Nashville Predators, doesn't care about the popular opinion or goal. Like if he's deciding Askarov's our best player, we're taking Askarov. I don't think he'll get past David Poile for all the reasons you said. Rene is is at the end of his career, and I think Askarov has a 970 save percentage or something in 3
crazy.
games or 4 games right now in the KHL. It's insane. He's a really, really good goalie. I think if this was 10 years ago, he'd be a top 5 player, but because of the the weirdness of goalies in the last decade, he's gonna drop to 11. But I wouldn't be surprised if he came dropped anywhere in this draft. I wouldn't be shocked. If once he goes, I'll be like, oh, okay. I'm not gonna react too much about where I picked him versus where he actually fell. For 12.
Interesting. We do have a few of the same picks.
Yeah, no, we have a couple. I knew we were gonna have a couple. I was curious about Askarov because I don't think he falls farther than this, but I don't think he gets past Carolina if.
Yeah, I don't think he actually goes to the second round. They're a lot. Yeah, but
Yeah.
he could drop, the 20th. But I really do think it's Nashville being like easy choice.
Yeah,
It's
I think if Nashville doesn't take him, Carolina will at 13
Mhm.
because they have similar issues with goaltending. Mrazek's not really a number one, but he's like a stopgap until Askarov shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolina's another team that can doesn't has a lot of forwards, a lot of defensemen. They need a goalie.
Yeah, they might be the Carolina might be the deepest team making a top 20 pick this year.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Anyway, number 12. I'll lead it off. I have Anton Lundell going at 12. You compared him to Anze Kopitar.
Yeah,
I more
in the way.
compare him to the other center on the Florida Panthers,
Oh,
Barkov.
Markov. Huh.
They're both Finnish. They're both defensively oriented centers with a little bit of offense upside. I think Barkov is a better offensive player than Lundell could be, but having a 1-2 of Barkov and Lundell in Florida, I think will be incredible for that team. He had 28 points in 44 games in Liga in Finland, and he's probably one of the most NHL ready players at this part of the draft too. People aren't really talking about that. Like guy like Jack Quinn might need another year. A guy like Cole Perfetti may need another year. I think Lundell could realistically jump in the NHL for next season.
Yeah, his positioning is just so good that what he does lack, he makes up for.
Yeah, and he's definitely the best two-way player in this draft, and that will help him as a rookie, being able to, play well in his own zone and play well defensively. John Quenneville is a huge proponent of that, and I think he'll have a little bit of a hand in taking Anton Lundell at 12.
All right, for me.
Yep.
I'm going with Seth Jarvis for Florida. I think Florida needs a winger they need a winger to play top 6 minutes like with Huberdeau, with Barkov, and I think Seth Jarvis is a guy that can really jump into the NHL quickly. He brings every part of the game. He's got a shot. He can pass. He can skate. He's good defensively. He's got everything. And he leads his Portland. I forgot the team name. He leads his team, by himself. Basically, it's all him out there. He's the one doing it. He's the one, picking up the puck. He's no mistakes. Really leads by example. And I think Florida could really use someone who's like responsible and and brings that kind of game and can compete at just a high level with guys like Huberdeau and Barkov and complement them and do it sooner rather than later, because I don't know what's going on in Florida, but they need to turn something around.
Yeah.
And I think Seth Jarvis could really add a stabilizing figure to that forward group.
Yeah, and really, if they lose Hoffman and Dadonov in the offseason, he could really replace a guy like Hoffman.
And I know that they have a Hornqvist coming in, but his career's,
it's on the back end.
Yeah, it's the end. I don't think they need to turn something around, and I think that's Seth Jarvis.
All right, cool. So that's top 12 for us. 13 is on you.
13, I just gotta go scroll down the draft to find him a little, because I do have him.
Oh, you're going a little off the board?
Well, not far off the board, but a little bit further down, and it's someone that I think you might disagree with, but Caden Guhle.
Really?
Yeah.
I do disagree with that.
Carolina might be the best team with a top 20 pick. They have incredible, young offensive talent. They do have great defensive guys coming up, but the only thing they don't have is other than goaltending, but I don't think that is the pick to do it because there are no other goalies left. But they don't have the deepest defensive prospect pool. All they really have left who isn't playing in the NHL is Jake Bean.
Yeah.
And this Caden Guhle kid, he is good. He is strong. He's physical. He plays with an edge. He plays big minutes. There was like fears about him being like, oh, just like a one-dimensional kind of like defensive guy, because he is on a really good defensive team, but he does play like the power play minutes when he needs to. He can step up into that even if he's not like doesn't have the skill set for it. He's still like there for it, and I think that plays big. I think he can be a top 4D for Carolina, and that's what I'm gonna say. He's the the number one D on the number one defensive team in the entire CHL. I thought for goals against, I think it's the Prince Albert. They're one of the best defensive teams in the entire like Canadian Hockey League, and for him to be the number one defenseman on it, no flaws. He's always there, the number one guy, reliable. I think that says a lot. And Carolina can maybe take a risk with this pick, and it's not a risk because he is a good guy, but pick down the draft a little bit and say, hey, we don't have as many D. This guy, he will be an NHL defenseman. He's got the tools. With so few D in this draft, let's just, that he's our guy.
I was actually really curious because this is the first pick that I really disagree with this pick. With your pick at 13. I wouldn't have picked Caden Gooley this high. I guess we'll get in a little bit more where I have Caden Gooley going. I do have him going in the first round, obviously. But
I do have him ranked lower. I have other, like the next few picks, I do have them ranked above him, but I think Carolina being such a deep team, they don't have any, going forward, they don't have any needs other than goaltending that they need to fill in this draft. And with there's so few D, you can never have too many good defensive defensemen that are reliable. And that's, if you don't have good goaltending, you need good D. So
yeah, that's also true. You can never have too many of these defensemen. Even if you're Carolina, where you're really deep there. Yeah.
Strong physical D. It's hard to pick these guys up in free agency. You gotta draft them.
Fair enough. Anyway, I have for 13 my Carolina pick. I have Seth Jarvis going there. This is a guy I could see slipping into the top 10. For Winnipeg, I wouldn't be surprised if Winnipeg took him over Quinn. In Portland, he had 98 points in 58 games. In the WHL is seen as the Canadian Hockey League with the least amount of scoring. Like, it's harder to score in the WHL than it is in the Q.
Yeah, the O or the Q, yeah, for sure.
So he's, like you said before, he's an incredible skater. He's fast. He's agile. He could probably go higher, like I said. And he kind of reminds me, he's giving me really big Matt Barzal vibes from a few years ago.
I like that. I really like that.
Barzal went, 15th? 14th? He went in the middle of the first round. Huh?
Yeah, 15th, yeah.
Something like that. But he went in the middle of the first round, and at the time I could never understand why. I know Barzal had a little bit of an injury problem, but just his skill level, I was shocked when he fell all the way, into the teens. And Seth Jarvis is another guy. If he falls any further than 13, I'm going to be really, really surprised because he's an incredibly skilled player. The knock on him right now is he isn't physically strong yet, but he is a 2000s baby, a mid 2000s baby, so he might not have got that into his game yet. But I think Carolina will be the ones to take him here, knowing how much skill they already have up front. They could always use more of it. And I gotta switch my page now. All right, at 14, Edmonton Oilers pick. I gotta find him. I have Edmonton selecting winger Dawson Mercer. Dawson Mercer had 60 points and 24 goals for Drummondville, the Q, last year. He's a fast, goal-scoring winger that Edmonton desperately needs to play with either McDavid or Drysdale. He seemed to have a little bit of strength issues on the puck, kind of like Jarvis. But that's something that could be easily fixed in development and age, really, and experience. But I think if he gets to 14, Edmonton will have an easy time selecting Dawson Mercer to be their next accompaniment to their top two centermen.
Yeah, I have he plays center. He also does play wing. He plays both. I can see. It's a good pick. So for me, I had to go down a little bit on the elite prospects list. I'm going for Edmonton, Rodion Amirov.
There's another guy I had that they could pick up here.
I think he's for the same reason that you have Dawson Mercer playing. You need that winger just to fill out the top six, so there's no pressure on Drysdale to play with McDavid. And I think Amirov brings that. He's amazing at the unselfish game, both ends. He's just always there, always committed, big skater. He doesn't cheat offensively and do that thing, try and make a play or try and get a breakaway. He's just always aware, always playing the play that's there and not like anticipating. He's anticipating ahead, but he's not doing that as a defensive flaw. He's always anticipating ahead defensively and not giving up chances. He's quick. Doesn't have the top speed that McDavid does, but he's good in really short bursts. And I think that offensively they can do some dynamo thing that would be really good. I think he has an incredibly high ceiling, but maybe more of like a medium floor. But I think that's all you need to play with McDavid.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just need to be in the right spot and to be able to keep up with him mentally.
He's the guy who's always in that right spot. If he doesn't have what he misses in that elite skill set, he has an high IQ to always be there, and I think he'd be in a great complement. Like Amirov, McDavid, Yamamoto. I think that could be a line, that could blow everything. That lead Edmonton to like a second round.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about him.
Yep. Who do you got the Leafs picking at 15?
I have. Now, I really like this kid, and I'm almost like as a Sens fan, I'm like, shit, he goes to Toronto. Toronto gets him. Dawson Mercer. Yeah, I think he's the smartest player in the draft overall. Maybe not like hockey IQ, but just like actual IQ. Like he's the most intelligent player in the draft. He's got this high IQ level. He's just on an edge. He's easy to coach. He doesn't have like elite offensive skills, but he can play with anybody up and down the roster. Like I think he, with that high commitment, with that effort, like he can play with Matthews. He could play with Marner. He could play with Tavares. He could play with Nylander. He can do all that. And he's so smart, and he's exactly what Toronto needs in their like bottom six, middle six kind of core. Not that top end talent, but someone who can just win the game and and is there at the right spot. And you're like, damn, thank God he was there, because we'd have lost another first round if it wasn't for him being there. Like I can see him. I can see him scoring or setting up the first the playoff round winning goal.
Right.
In overtime, like he passes it to Matthews who scores, and it's like, thank God he's there, because that was the goal that got us into the second round. And I like the comparison. I like to compare him to Bo Horvat.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting comparison. I haven't heard that. That's good. For me,
this is okay.
Obviously you can see, anyone watching, I'm rocking the Leafs jersey. This pick is probably my least confident I am in any pick I am in the first round, because Kyle Dubas generally picks the skilled player, the guy with the really high ceiling, the Rasmus Sandin, the Timothy Liljegren, the Nick Robertson over the last couple of years. I have in my mock draft the Leafs picking Braden Schneider.
Ooh.
I don't think they will unless the draft goes exactly as I have it up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
If Seth Jarvis is available, if Dawson Mercer is available, if Lundell is available, if Askarov is available, the Dubas will pick them over Schneider. I think Schneider is the best player left for the Leafs. He obviously fits the role the Leafs desperately need. And he's probably known as the best hitter in the draft. He's a tough right-hand shot defenseman with a little bit of offensive upside. He did have 42 points in 60 games and Brandon in the WHL. So he does have some offensive upside. Everyone's talking about him being, a defensive defenseman, Luke Shen. He's not going to do anything. He's still a very good player, and I think the next best defenseman in the draft after Drysdale and Sanderson. But like I said, I don't know whether the Leafs are going to pick this player. To me, it seems like a no-brainer at this spot. Yeah. But because, I don't know. I just don't know. I like him. I don't know if Dubas does.
I couldn't agree more with it being a pick that Toronto could go for, because boy, does he fit that role.
Mm-hmm. It might be a little bit higher than he would go for other teams because of the strength of the offensive players in this part of the draft. But yeah, I think it's a need, and I think Toronto needs to start filling those spots.
Yeah, I will say he is the strongest player in the draft, hands down, just like raw strength.
Yeah, just pure strength. Yeah, he's big and strong. Like, I'm imagining in my head a pairing of Muzzin and Schneider in a couple years, and I'm just like,
Such shivers.
Now, for the next pick for me, I got to find him because I don't know where he is on my thing. Oh, there he's right there. So, for Montreal, I have a pick that I know you and I have talked about a little bit. I have Montreal at 16 picking Hendrix Lapierre.
Ooh.
Hendrix Lapierre has had some injury concerns. He's had some concussions. He's had a little vertebrae damage. I know that he's gotten fixed apparently recently. But last year he only played 19 games. He had 17 points, but he only played 19 games, which is a huge concern with Hendrix Lapierre, is his injury history. I think at 16, for Montreal to gamble and pick Lapierre to be their next number one French centerman is too much for the Montreal Canadiens to, I think, overlook at this point. I would not be surprised if he fell out of the first round. I would be, because of his injuries. It depends how, the teams have obviously talked to all these players. It depends how those interviews have gone, how they've scouted his injuries, what his current situation is. As far as my research, he looks okay. He's working out. He's getting stronger. He's going through all the rhythms that you would do in a COVID off season. But it's definitely an interesting pick at 16, and I'm curious what you think of it.
Yeah, he does. He might be the behind Lafreniere and Rossi and Perfetti. He might be like the third or fourth best playmaker in this draft.
Yeah.
He's got a playmaking talent. He's not a big shooter, but he's got a playmaking talent that I think is just way elite, way above this draft. But I do have, due to his injury concerns, I don't personally have him in the first round.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. It's like some people might not even pick him. He was he was a number one pick in the Q draft a few years ago. He's incredibly skilled. He's obviously a playmaker before a shooter, like you said. If he played a full year and he had no injury concerns, he'd be a top 5 pick.
Oh, for sure.
Easy. And because we're at 16 now, I hate when players drop because of an injury, especially 16, 17, 18. Unless it's super career defining, it's tough to let people drop past a certain point with injury. Guys like Riley have dropped before, Morgan Riley. If he wasn't hurt in his draft year, might have gone first over Yakupov. Barzal was injured in his year. He's obviously dropped, and looking back on it, you go, "Wow, I can't believe he dropped that far." And you have to look into it to see the fact that he was injured. And I think Lapierre might be a candidate for one of those responses in a few years.
For sure. Mm-hmm. For me, for Montreal. I have Montreal selecting. Fine here. Noel Gunler. I think Gunler's up there with Holtz and Quinn as just being one of the better goal scorers in this draft. But he also has just that elite two-way edge that neither of those two have. I don't think he has the skills of a goal scorer. It's the hockey IQ, a commitment to goal scoring. He loves to get those dirty goals right in front of the net. And I think that's what Montreal needs. Just some guy to get out there, do the dirty work in both zones, score a dirty goal, and I think he can bring that to the NHL level really quickly and get, faster than Holtz, faster than Quinn, get up a 20, 30 goal season, even if he doesn't have the career numbers that either of those two do.
Yeah, I like Gunler.
Yeah, I can see him mixing well with that, Domi and Drouin. Like, I can see him getting in there and just scoring the dirty goal when they need it. Just, hitting the guy on the back check when they need it. He's right there. He's always committed, and I can't see any argument against Montreal taking him.
All right. For 17. Oh, that's you
17.
first. Sorry, you're first for 17.
I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna find him on here. Find him on the lead prospect. So we dropped in this list. Uh-oh.
Going way off the board.
Braden Schneider. Yeah, for Chicago. I think with the pick of Kirby Dach last year, I think Chicago's really solidified their top six, like long term.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot of forward depth, and they do not have any defense.
Yeah.
No D depth going forward. No prospects really going forward. They don't have much. And with Duncan Keith getting older, with Brent Seabrook maybe never playing again, Braden Schneider's this huge, strong guy, wins puck battles, gritty along the boards, quick on the puck for transition. He's good physically in front of the net, blocks passes. He's that guy that, he brings both Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook's game kind of together into one player, and I think it'd be a really, really really good pick for Chicago. I think they'd look at him and say, that's the kind of guy that we want. And he does what I think he lacks. I know he scored, he did put up a good number of points this year, but a lot of them were secondary assists on the power play. He's not, I think his offense goes a little bit overrated. And that, that's, defensive defenseman, that's okay, of course. But I do think he gets a little bit overrated for that.
All right.
He doesn't just doesn't have that offensive edge that Pat. He gets the puck up, but he doesn't have the puck skills or the passing to maybe make that elite talent work. But he's still got that. I think he could still be a big guy as a second or third pairing. That's why I absolutely see why you see Toronto taking him to that big D to play with Muzzin or something on the second pair that could be an effective winner.
Mm-hmm. I at 17 for me, I also have Chicago drafting for need. I have them selecting Caden Gooley here. All the reasons you said, I think their offense is pretty solidified. They only really have Adam Boquist on the back end for prospects. And with the aging defenseman, I think Caden Gooley could step in here in a couple of years and help the Chicago Blackhawks make it back to the playoffs consistently. He's more of a two-way player, but he's steady. He's a steady, solid, big defenseman. He needs to make improvements in his overall offensive game, I think. But because there's not a whole lot of defensive options at this point of the draft, if Caden Gooley gets to Chicago, they can't wait. I don't think they go too far off the board, because I think I have all forwards between here and pick 29 or something. This is a safe pick, I think, for Chicago at 17.
Yeah, he's a very, very safe pick, I believe, Braden Schneider, for wherever he goes. He can't go wrong. He's going to play at the NHL level. Is he 6th, 7th depth, top, 4, we'll see, but he's definitely a good safe pick. Both Gooley and Schneider.
Both of them are going to go kind of, I think, in the same spot. Once one goes, a team's going to go, oh crap, I need a defenseman, and pick the other.
Right, and be like, they took Gooley. I want Schneider. I want Gooley now.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting to have them kind of flipped.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think both are a little bit higher up being picked due to D being a lot more rare in this draft.
Mm-hmm. All right, at 18 we have New Jersey's second pick in the draft. I have them. Who'd I have them picking? Sanderson, right? So I had them picking Jake Sanderson. earlier in the draft. For 18, I have them selecting Dylan Holloway. Holloway played in the University of Wisconsin this year. Had a little bit of a down season in a lot of scouts' eyes, but he has incredible potential to be a really good power forward in the NHL. He still has a lot of skill to go with it. He was a lot higher rated early in the year. You can't see it, but on Cap Friendly, he's actually ranked 13th. But he's dropped on a lot of scouts boards to around this area, 15 to 20 range. I don't think he should have. I think because he was a young player playing in university, his stats and his offensive stats don't quite match up to what his potential could be and what he actually is as a player. So because New Jersey has a lot of picks here, I think they'll take a chance on Dylan Holloway.
I completely agree. I have Dylan Holloway being selected by New Jersey as well. I do want to add, he because he's born in 2001, he's playing in the university level. He's playing with Alex Turcotte and Cole Caulfield. Mm-hmm. He's playing with future superstars, but that isn't inflating his stats because he's playing that unselfish, supportive role that lets them shine. And it kind of, like you said, it's a down year. It's not so much a down year as it because he's the guy being relied on. All of his flaws, all of his mistakes are right there on the table. And he owned up to it. He grew from it and he got better. And he really shows like, hey, I can make elite talent shine. And I think, he could play with Hughes. He could play with Heishier, getting in there, like making elite talent like that shine. I couldn't agree more for New Jersey taking Dylan Holloway here.
Mm-hmm. 19's on you, Calgary.
19's on. And this is where I'm surprised you didn't mention that I haven't taken him yet. I'm going to take with 19th. I think Calgary's going to take Jack Quinn.
Oh, I forgot about Quinn. I haven't been paying attention. Yeah, that's a huge drop for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll start with why I think Calgary. They're looking to get better, not like rebuild, I think. I don't think they want to tear it down. I think they like what they have and they just want to get better.
No, there's been a lot of trade rumors with Gaudreau over the last couple of years, but I don't think they're really in that mode yet.
Right, their core's still under 30. They're ready for a deep run. And now I think Jack Quinn is like kind of streaky and inconsistent. I think he has elite goal scoring instincts. He's got a strong stick, strong shot, and he takes lots of shots. But he's kind of inconsistent. He has big games, he has small games. He's playing second line minutes on a really good team too. So he's not facing the best defensive talent all the time. And I think that's kind of giving him where it's letting him be streaky and maybe put up more points than he would have on another team. And for that reason, I think that he might not be able to have that same solid top six, kind of player. But I think he could, on a Calgary team with a lot of prime talent really soon, because he's such a goal scorer, could be a guy who can go up and down the lineup, play first line, second line, third line, and put up a lot of goals really early in his career for a team like Calgary.
Yeah,
he's a bit streaky, and I don't. Guys, I don't know. You don't like guys who have more goals than assists. I'm not going to blame a guy for that, but I think there's just something off with his game that I don't like. Sometimes I'm watching him and I'm like, wow, this guy's up there with Holtz and Jarvis as, or Gunler as a goal scorer, but it's just missing something on other games.
Yeah, there's something to be said for, being an elite shot in a draft. You can't really, you can teach a guy to be a better skater, to think a little better. The shooting aspect, I think, is a lot harder to develop on a guy. Yeah. So having that elite shooting
as one of the best scorers in the draft, but because everything else about him, I think, makes him drop.
Fair enough. Okay, for me, for 19, I have a guy who's a little bit off the board, I think. It's more of a fun pick for me. I have Lukas Reichel going at 19. Lukas Reichel is the nephew of Robert Reichel, who was drafted by and played 6 seasons in Calgary, and I think that would be really cool. for no other reason really. He is a complete player. He's good. He could go in the first round. I think this is a little high for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept looking at it. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna pick Reichel here. I'm gonna pick Reichel here. So he's got a really high ceiling. I think he could become like a really good middle six guy, which I think the Calgary Flames really need. Like, I think they have their high skill offensive guys. Their first line, their Monahan, Lindholm, and Goudreau, I think is pretty set. They need middle six scoring wingers, and I think Reichel could fit that mold in a few years.
I really like Reichel. I see why you'd go up there, and for similar reasons to Quinn. He can play up and down the lineup on the wing, a good scorer, fits the same kind of. Like, we see Calgary needing the same kind of scoring here. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. This point in the draft is kind of like, I don't really know. I was pretty confident the top 15 that these guys would go. Once we get into the 20s, a lot of different things could happen.
For sure.
Obviously barring trades and all that. For New Jersey here at 20. Whoops, I scrolled all the way up accidentally. Sorry, everybody. At 20 here, I have New Jersey picking Noel Gunler. Swedish winger. Because the Devils have 3 picks in the top 20, they can afford to take a lot of more risks on players that may not be as well developed or safe as a guy like Connor Zary, who could also go around this spot. He's seen as Gunler is an amazing shooter, but he has some other skills that he needs to improve. But I think if he starts to develop these things, he could be a really big steal at 20. And if the Devils end up with Sanderson, Holloway, and Gunler after this first round, they'll be super happy with that.
All right, on to me.
Yeah, on you.
So I'm going to start by repeating that the New Jersey Devils were tied with Florida for third worst in goals against.
Yeah.
That's why we both have Dylan Holloway being picked. They need that added to their. And I think it's really interesting you would pick Reichel at 19 because at 20 I have Peterka. Yeah, John Jason Peterka. I think he's a speedy winger, and he's so responsible. I really like this guy. He's poised. He's always there. He gets relied on. They give him, in tough situations, he's the guy that you put on the ice. He's your extra attacker kind of guy. And for a team like the Devils, the same reason they need Holloway, he's a guy that can really uplift the team around him and make that elite talent that is there really shine and, maybe score himself, be a first-line guy. I can see him being a first-line, winger just because he's so good, so reliable, so responsible, and you can put him out there and you don't have to worry about him. Is he as good offensively as Reichel? No, but overall I think just he has the speed, he has the tools that can just really make a team amazing. And for I think your pick of Gunler, for the same reasons, fills the same kind of spot that Peterka would in New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey's looking really good. New Jersey and Ottawa in this draft are looking really good because of how many first-round picks they have. 21, Columbus, Alex.
All right. Now, this is a tough one for me. It took me a while. But for this one, I like Thomas Bordeleau.
Thomas Bordeleau.
He was the top scorer in, I believe, in the U.S. development program for his age group.
Mm-hmm.
But what's most impressive about his game isn't his scoring. It's that two-way game. He's effective in both ends, but shines really in the neutral zone. He's big at turnovers, big at intercepting passes, and that he's not the best offensively, but because he's constantly turning the puck the other way, he's constantly making these offensive chances. And you put yourself in the right spot, you're going to score. Doesn't matter if you have a good shot or not. If you're 200 feet the other way, you can't score. He's a guy that can put you in the other team's end. And I think a team like Columbus I think he'd really fit that type of defensive play that Columbus has. And for future years to come, keep them really competitive in the playoffs.
Bortolo is an interesting pick. It's definitely would consider to be off the board at this point.
I do think he maybe ranks a little bit lower, but I really like the game he brings. I think Columbus will look at him and say, hey, you know what? He's the best in his group. Like he got something special.
That's a good pick. I keep scrolling the wrong thing. I have Jacob Perreault going to Columbus. He's the son of NHL player Yannick. Played for the Leafs for a little bit. He's kind of the exact opposite player his father was. Yannick was more of a very reserved defensive specialist. Jacob is the opposite. He's an offensive player with a good shot that sometimes takes shifts off. He's seen a little bit, a lazy defender, and I took him here at Columbus because who could really beat that part of his game out of him? Torts.
Yeah, fair. That's an excellent point.
I think that the Columbus Blue Jackets system and their coaching staff will really bring this kid's mental ability to really defend the game well. I think that'll bring that up significantly, and I think his offense will be able to shine through as a middle six, projected to be like a middle six centerman or a winger. Obviously, their position at this point is kind of ambiguous, especially at forward. But yeah, I think that Columbus would be really smart to take Perreault here. 22.
He was cut from the Hlinka Cup for those reasons too. It's like the part that he's missing. They were like, you know what, we don't have the time to coach him, but in a good team like Columbus, he could get whipped into shape. I certainly see.
Good development system like Columbus. I think they could really turn Perreault not into a defensive specialist, but a solid two-way player who really cares about the team play. So at 22, we have the Rangers pick. For me, the Rangers are really obviously they're gonna get Lafreniere here, but after Lafreniere and Kakko, pardon?
Jersey sales, they've already gone up.
Oh yeah,
for Lafreniere, they're already on.
So because they took Kakko last year, another winger, and Lafreniere this year, they're starting to show a little bit of weakness in their depth at center. So that's why I have New York taking Maverick Bourque here. 71 points in 49 games for Shawinigan, the QMJHL. He'll be the second French-Canadian player that the Rangers have picked in this draft after Lafreniere. He's got great puck skills, smaller size. The thing that needs a little bit of work is his skating. So that's why he's dropped into the the low first rounds. But skating is a thing that's to me is a teachable, improvable skill. Like you can obviously the aliens of the world like McDavid, you can't teach that. But
of course,
you can teach a guy to have improved skating as long as he has the other tools. And I think
and if he responds well to it.
If he responds well to it, obviously. A guy that, being a Leafs fan that I can draw from is a guy like Freddie Gauthier. Freddie Gauthier was more of a defensive specialist than Maverick Bourque. I'm not comparing them there, but his skating ability was really suspect, and that's why he dropped into the 20s of that year. He's a big player, but with the work, he's actually really improved his skating. If you watch any Leaf games, Leafs fans are watching this video, have really seen the improvement over the last few years from when he was drafted to now, and I think Maverick Bourque would be an easy choice if they think that they can teach that out of him.
I definitely do see a very high ceiling for Maverick Bourque. And I am a huge fan of Freddie Gauthier. I remember when we were living together, I had really high hopes for him for Toronto.
Yeah, I like that pick. Again, didn't project as a number one center. No one was going to be confused about that.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah.
But Maverick Bork, like I said, could be a solid two or a second or third line center for this team after Zibanejad.
All right, for me, I went and really. Now that I'm looking at it, a lot further down the board, uh, from the SHL, Helge Grans.
Oh, you pronounce I
I
pronounce it
think
always as Helga, and I was like, what?
Helge. I've heard Helge and
Yeah.
Helge Grans. I'm just gonna call him Grans.
For a second, I was like, who? No, that's good.
Helge. I've heard
Whatever.
both.
Grounds.
Grans. I see with uh, New York. I think yeah, they do have an issue on center, but I think what they lack is the elite center that they might not get yet. And with Grounds, I think that they get a D because I really think that their defensive pool is really drying up. Guys like Fox and Lindgren are playing NHL minutes right now. They don't really have anybody down in their depths that's really like a top defensive prospect, and there aren't many in this draft. I'm surprised he's dropped so low, but Grons, he's a really good defensive partner, and I think that's what I really liked about him. He's always keeping his head up, and he's aware of his other. He likes to. He's a right-handed shot. He likes to watch the other partner, make sure that he's not going to get caught, alone in a 2-on-1. He's going to come back and make sure he's always a safe option, and he's really good at the breakout. He gets the puck and it's going up, going up the wing. And I think with New York's strong wingers, having a really good breakout defenseman who's good at making wingers look good like Grans could make New York really powerful offensively. So he is a guy who he's big, but he needs to learn how to use his size and develop it down low in front of his own net. He does have some defensive miscues and not the highest hockey IQ, but I think there's just so many skills in here. He's got the commitment level. He's aggressive, and he's a guy that I think could really work with the forward group and the wingers that New York Rangers does have right now because they lack the center depth.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick for the Rangers here. Yeah, I have nothing to add. Solid. 23 for Philly, Alex.
Maverick Bork.
Maverick Bork.
Yeah, Maverick Bork. I rank him around the same place you did, but I like his offensive instincts, but yeah, the inconsistent effort is a thing for me. I don't like. He had a 7-point game, and then the team lost 7 in a row.
Oh,
and it's it's one of those sure, but I see something there where the high potential and that high ceiling is matched with a really low floor. I feel like he's a 100-foot player that if he doesn't reach that top 6 level, he can't play a bottom 6 role. And so there's a risk involved where if he doesn't get to that, if he can't overcome the holes in his game, he's just not going to pan out at the NHL at all. To be one of those guys who scores a lot at the AHL but can't make it work.
yeah, that's definitely why he's dropped, into the lower first round. It's definitely a little bit suspect there.
And for no other reason, I have him above or below anybody. Going to Philly, I think he reminds me a lot of a young Claude Giroux. Just offensively, I think Giroux's a little bit better defensively, but he reminds me of Giroux in the offensive zone. And I'm like, hey, it's just kind of maybe you can replace him. Maybe he doesn't need, if he does get that top 6, he could be a good role model for that style of play.
For me, I have Philly for me is in win now mode. I don't think will pick a player with a little bit doubts in their game. They need guys who could potentially step in 1 or 2 years and be a middle 6 forward to this point. Obviously the higher ceiling guys could maybe get there, but it's bigger risk. For me, I have 23. I have Connor Zary going to Philadelphia here. Very steady. He's not flashy. He's just a good hockey player. And a lot of guys, before I'm like, oh, he's an elite skater. He's a great this. Connor Zary is good across the board. And there's a reason why he's in the first round. He's just a good centerman. He's a few years away, but overall could be, that second line role or third line role for Philadelphia. Yeah, he had 86 points in 57 games in the WHL, more assists than goals. But yeah, I think he's the definition at this point of a safe pick.
Yeah, in my notes, I have the what you see is what you get with him.
Yeah.
You get him, I like that pick.
Okay, 24. I have a guy who slipped in comparison between your draft and my draft. I have Colorado picking Rodion Amirov here.
Ooh.
Because the reason he slipped I think he's going to slip into the 20s a little bit. He could go in the teens. But because he's in Russia, there's a weird stigma in the NHL with the Russian-born players. Are they going to stay in the KHL? Where are they going? But he's an amazing, speedy, shooting, puck-handling winger. He's very good, and I would not be surprised if he went in and around where you picked him or even higher.
With Edmonton at 14.
Yeah, you had him at 14. I had him 10 picks later. That might be the biggest disparity between either of us. But he could 100% go there. He could go higher. He could, Nashville could take a weird pick on him. I could see that. He only had 2 points in 21 games in the KHL, but that was obviously in the KHL with men in a real league.
Yeah. He was given those big minutes, and he didn't score and produce, but he didn't have any defensive flaws at the same time. He was still relied on. They're like, okay, you didn't score, but you didn't fuck up either.
Yeah, and at 24 could be probably the biggest steal in the draft. That he has the potential to be a huge steal in the draft if he drops this low.
Yeah, someone that ranks him higher, I do think he'll be a steal at 24.
All right, you do 24 now? Yeah.
At 24 pick, Connor Zary. He's what you get. He's tough, he's physical, and he's really mentally developed and no nonsense. And I really like that about him. He just does it. He's a workhorse, safe pick. He doesn't have that offensive upside to replace Backstrom or Kuznetsov, but he's got the physicality and well-rounded play that, sooner rather than later will give Washington a really competitive third line, I think, when they take him.
Yeah, I said Colorado. It's Washington. Rip. I misspoke.
Pardon?
I misspoke, I think, before. I think I said Colorado's pick, but it's actually Washington. You're right.
I did the exact same thing at 25-24. Was there a trade that we missed?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. We're good? Okay.
We have this right? Cap Friendly's right? We're okay.
Yeah,
For some reason, I have it flipped.
I have the exact same thing. I had Colorado taking 24th and Washington taking 25.
Huh. Well.
But it doesn't change my picks.
No, I don't think it changes my picks here either, even if it's wrong. I believe Cap Friendly, so.
Yeah.
We'll see. It'd be funny if it was wrong, though.
Is this me?
Yeah, you at Colorado.
Sorry, my the draft there. Oh, there we go. I'm going a guy who might be way off the board. Topi Niemela.
That's pretty off the board.
In the SM Liga. I haven't seen. I think I've only seen one other ranking where he's been in the first round. He was taken 30th or 31st. Mm-hmm. But I really like this kid's game. He's not huge. He's a mid-sized D, but he's got speed and he's got this defensive edge. He's got really high hockey IQ. He's playing in the Liga against men as a defensively minded defenseman, which just doesn't happen in the Liga. If you the defensemen coming in that are young are that play at this level are all offensive. They all got that offensive touch, but he's got a defensive touch, and he plays at such a high speed, such a high level, I think that he could complement Colorado's elite offense and just play at such a high level, high speed. I love this kid. Got nothing bad to say about him.
He's definitely a guy I don't have in the first round. That's definitely an off-the-board pick, but yeah, I like him too. I saw a little bit for him. I'd have him more probably in the 35 to 40 range.
That's where I see a lot of people taking him. But I see Colorado saying, they were maybe a bit exposed on the D. Like they need, like, I think he could just be a guy in maybe 2 or 3 years, come right out, just play top 4 minutes, score, but not have the top offensive skill, but score because he's just in the right place, passes the puck up, and lets the forwards do their job, defensively responsible. I like to compare him to Ryan Ellis. Not the biggest guy, but is like a two-way, more defensively almost, despite his size, and pulls it off really well in a top 4 role, and I think he's going to be about that good.
For 25, for me, I have it for some reason listed as Washington, but if it's Colorado, I have John Jason Peterka at 25. Peterka wasn't this high on my list until I watched him play some national friendlies between Germany and Switzerland.
And Switzerland, that was a good game.
Those are good. They were good games. He always seemed to be in the right spot. I couldn't tell, if that was a result of him playing more with Stutzle, working with a really high skilled guy like that. But John Jason Peterka could be a really good pick here at 25 for Colorado. He's an offensive-minded winger with a hard forecheck, and he just seems to be in the right spot. I don't know. He's smart. He's really smart on the ice. He knows where to go. And yeah, I'm not sure where he'll be picked. He wasn't this high on my list, so there's a little bit of recency bias here with me. But at 25, I think that's a really solid pick.
I agree. I really like Peterka.
So 26 for me now. I have St. Louis picking the diminutive winger. I hear that way too much. Ridley Gregg. Ridley Gregg is another guy who is a mid-2000s baby like Byfield is. So he's not quite the player he would be if he was born a little earlier. And that's why I think he's slipping a little bit. Ridley Gregg is a really good hockey player, but he's got a lot of raw skills that haven't developed yet. So that's why he slipped into the late first round and off of some people's first round board entirely. But I think whoever picks him, if someone picks him in the first round, is going to look like a genius in 2, 3 to 4 years. I think he's projected and destined to be a really good middle six all-around winger that can put up 50, 60 points on a yearly basis. And I think St. Louis matches that fit perfectly.
Yeah, I will say the last 20 games he played, he put up like over a point a game. He was really good later on in the year. Yeah. It shows like his development's continuous.
Yeah, if he continues that steep development curve, and he's obviously going to play in the juniors or wherever he plays. He played in Brandon Wheat Kings, WHL last year. He's going to go back there. He's going to get more ice time, and hopefully he keeps developing and makes someone look really smart.
Back to me.
Back to you at 26.
No. At 26, I have St. Louis picking Jan Mysak. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Mysak?
Yeah, Jan. I've heard Jan Mysak. I've heard Jan Mysak. I've heard,
I really like this guy. I think he's an amazing defensive forward and a penalty kill specialist. Got good anticipation, loves to block passes, loves to block shots on the PK. Reads it, always giving 110% in every zone. Doesn't have the offensive upside, but what I like about him is that he plays in the Czech league against men already in a third line role. So I think he can bring that to the NHL and play a really good defensive game sooner. And when he transitioned from the European ice, he played in forget which team he played for here in the Canadian Hockey League, but he transitioned well from the European ice to the North American ice. Like his skill set translates well. And I think that in the St. Louis Blues, I think he could fit really well as a third line winger or center for to keep them really competitive too for the next 2 years, because I think he could jump up pretty soon.
Yeah, he played for the Hamilton Bulldogs in the O.
Yeah.
And I watched a lot of video of him too. I 100% agree. Could be a defensive specialist in the NHL,
Mm-hmm.
and is super fast and has the skill to be an offensive guy too. Really, I think is a really good pick at 26. So Anaheim 27 there, Alex.
Nope, that's to me. Now I have Lucas Reichel.
Yeah.
I'll repeat again. The Anaheim Ducks were 29th in goals for last season. He has that, like, I think he has elite offensive instincts, but doesn't have the all-round game to make him that number, a first-line scorer, but can be the, middle six kind of winger that can really put up a lot of points. And I really like his game along the boards. He's always the first skater. He's constantly making his own chances. And you can tell he's still like growing physically and will grow physically. He's a bit of might be like a late bloomer that I think Anaheim could really enjoy. I think he kind of reminds me of not in play style, but just being taken in this way. Nick Ritchie,
right?
Just a winger they like. I think he can play a certain game, maybe more of a long-term, later, late bloom kind of guy than immediately. I don't know. So I'm taking Lucas Reichel with the 27th for the Anaheim Ducks.
I'm taking a guy who I'm a little bit surprised you haven't taken yet, because I really like him. I'm taking Justin Barron at 27 for Anaheim. Justin Barron had an injury this year, or last year, I guess. He had a blood clot that they fixed. He only played 34 games, and is another guy that dropped from probably a top 15 first-round pick into the low 20s. Coming into this season, he was ranked in and around Drysdale and Sanderson. Obviously, they were a little bit above him, but he was in that group with Gooley and Schneider and all those guys. When an injury forced him to miss all but 34 games, I hate when that happens to a guy. I mentioned that earlier. It's a little bit less extreme, obviously. What was his name? Hendrix Lapierre. Shoot.
His injuries are more.
Perrier's injury is a little bit more crazy. Multiple concussions is nothing to,
Yeah, that's serious. I will say Barron's blood clot isn't related to a genetic defect.
Yeah.
It's completely random.
Yeah, it's a completely random event. So him having a full season next year in whatever team he plays for, I think could make Anaheim look really smart here. Anaheim, I think we said this before, is lacking good prospects. Specifically, everywhere. Forwards, defensemen, goalies. So getting, I think I took Lucas Raymond before, getting Justin Barron here, being to potentially be an effective two-way defenseman. He's a good first pass. Has an effective shot. In 3 or 4 years could be a huge steal as a defensive player in this draft from a year where defensemen are not all that popular in this part of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Is this me now?
Is it on to Meet Ottawa?
Meet Ottawa.
Okay.
I need to find him. So I was talking about this with you before. In this part of the draft, the 20s, late teens, early 20s, I am most confident about this pick, and I have no explanation for it. Ottawa will pick Tyson Foerster. Tyson Foerster isn't flashy, but he's a really, really solid centerman. He had 80 points in 62 games for the Barrie Colts, and he really kind of took that team on his shoulders in the last half of the year. The comparable I keep seeing, and is why I have Ottawa taking him, is like Mark Stone light.
Hmm.
Because Mark Stone, and I think it was Bob McKenzie that specifically was talking about this, because Mark Stone turned out to be a really good player, but he dropped into like the 5th and 6th round. People are scared, GMs are scared to miss out on that kind of player
Oh,
because
for sure. For sure.
Forrester could be that level of elite talent, but needs to fix a little bit of his skating. Again, like I said before, it's a teachable skill. If you think you can teach the bad mechanics of his skating out of him, you're going to look like a genius. And I don't think because of all the top picks Ottawa has taken so far, if they land with Byfield, Drysdale, they can do whatever they want with this pick,
For sure. For
and
sure.
look like and could end up looking like a really really good draft for Ottawa if they take Forster at 28.
Mhm. Yeah, I do think that it was his skating for me in particular really shows. I think that his lack of his skating, shows how bad his positioning is,
Mm-hmm.
and that for me gets me a little iffy and has me lower in the early second round. But I don't have him in my first.
Yeah, he's definitely in
Before.
and around here. I've seen him, 25 to 35, so it's not
Mhm. I've
entirely
seen
off the
him.
board. But I think
I think he's one of the best one timers in the
mm,
shot, one timer shots in the draft.
he's strong. He's not, he's not Mark Stone's size, but he's strong. I keep saying Mark Stone. He's not going to be Mark Stone.
No.
So he's going to be more in between, maybe a Tanner Pearson and Mark Stone, somewhere in there. But
Mm.
power forward, winger, or center. He plays center for the Barrie Colts, but I see him more of a winger. Yeah, it could be a really good pick. Who do you got at 28?
All right, for me, I have Ottawa taking Ridley Gregg. I love this kid. I think he's a small guy, but everything he brings is big. He's got big hits, big drives to the net, big stick on the net, big compete level. He's got a big smile. He's got a big attitude. He's just always in your face. He's playing that hard forecheck. He's got a hard back check. He's just always there, always performing, and I love the way that he really grew into his game at the end of the last season. I think for Ottawa, with this 28th pick, they talk, especially for Melnick, they talk a lot about bringing character and attitude into the locker room. And with both Mark Borowiecki, who's, like, could be a captain, and Bobby Ryan, who was a Bill Masterton trophy winner, with them both leaving, they've lost all the character and attitude they claim to care about.
Right.
Like that, leadership, that, good character, this matters, the thing that they've been talking so much about, they've lost it, and Ridley Gregg brings all of it. And offense, I think he can be a great guy for Ottawa, and I think he'd be a huge fan favorite.
Yeah, you definitely see when he plays, he really cares. You can definitely see the heart. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
guys talk about heart, and it's not really a tangible thing unless you watch a guy, and you can really
Right.
tell that.
He's just always smiling. Him in the penalty box smiling. He's like, whatever. Just happy to be there, happy to stir shit, happy to be a part of the game, and like you can't teach happiness.
Yeah, yeah, it's good when you see hockey players specifically have a little bit of personality to their game as well, because a lot of hockey players are robots.
It's a
So,
game, right? Just be having fun. If you're like just pissed off and angry all the time, what's the point?
all right, we're getting down to it. 29's
Mhm.
Vegas's pick. And that's you.
For me, right, for yeah, back to me.
Yep, back to you.
I have Brendan Brisson.
Mm-hmm.
I think against Dallas, it really showed that Vegas didn't have that finish, that scoring edge, that a defensively strong-minded team like Dallas just totally took them away. They couldn't score. Got like 8 goals in 4 games, right? That's not enough. But they're still a contender, so they don't have to worry about this pick playing next season. They can kind of just like, hey, I'm going to pick up what works, maybe something that we need later down the line. And I think Brisson brings that. I think he's a great puck handler. I compare Brisson more to a Mark Stone.
Yeah.
A guy, he's not the greatest skater who's still working on it, but loves that stick handling down deep, really high hockey IQ and good ethic, and he likes to work. And for Mark Stone, when he said he's like, I know I'm a bad skater, so I went out there and worked on my puck handling until I became the best, like just this amazing puck handler. And I can see Brizon doing that. He's got a good work ethic, could really work at it, and on a team like Vegas that has Mark Stone on it, I think he can teach him how to play that next level game to maybe get him up to that NHL level.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I am picking a player for Vegas along a similar vein. Um, I have them taking Jake Neighbors at 29.
Mm.
Jake Neighbors is a strong, he plays a gritty, hard-nosed energy role in Edmonton and WHL, but he also had 70 points in 64 games. Now, that doesn't always translate to offense at the NHL level. I think his at his core, he is a very good middle six energy guy, and I think Vegas needs something more to their offense, a little more past their skill guys and their shooters like Mark Stone and Pacioretty and those Marchessault and those guys. If they get a little bit more high energy, they can really do some damage in the West.
Mm.
And I want to say too, I've just called an audible on my own rankings. I've changed my mind halfway through here. I didn't have Neighbors going at 29.
Oh, okay. Do you want to say who you did have before?
No, I'll
Okay.
get to him. But for
All
some
right.
reason, I just looked at it and I'm like, no, we wouldn't do that. They're taking Neighbors.
All right.
All right, for 30.
The team they got beat by Dallas.
I have to find him. Oh, he's up there. I have Dallas taking Jan Mysak. Mysak, like you said, he's a really good skater. For me, he doesn't have incredible straightaway speed, but he's a really good skater, and he just projects as a solid middle six defensive penalty kill specialist. And Dallas was a little suspect with the penalty kill in the playoffs, especially during Tampa Bay. And I can't, that could be because Tampa Bay is just way too good. But to have a guy like Mysak fit into your style as Dallas as a team. I originally had Jake Neighbors going in Dallas, and I bumped 29 to who I'm going to pick at 31. So these three have kind of flipped for me. Jake Neighbors also kind of fits into that Dallas style of game, but I think they're going to go with a little bit more speed and skill with Jan Mysak here if Neighbors is taken.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Mysak, so can't disagree against that one. And for me now?
Yeah, you're 30, right?
I like Roni Hirvonen. I think what was noticeable for Dallas in these playoffs was a center. Like, I know Hintz got injured, Faxa got injured, but they didn't score, like, goals. And neither did Sagan. They just didn't have goals scoring down the, like, just their centers couldn't do it. And I think that really, exposed them, because I think when you look at Cirelli and Point on the other side, that's a good 1-2 center combo, even with Stamkos missing. And I think Hirvonen, he does have elite offensive puck handling skills, in my opinion. I think he can really get that finish that Dallas likes right in front of the net. He's deceptive, really good along the boards and quick. And I think he can kind of bring something that Dallas really needed in the playoffs even. And while he might not be that anytime soon, it puts him in a good position long term for success down the middle. And I think he has he's better on center, but at the NHL level, might play on the wing. He's got really good defensive game too. I like what he brings, and I think he can slide in really well. You look at I see your comparison for Mysak in there for a guy that can kind of just slide in on the wing. Kiviranta did that. Even Guryanov kind of did that. They just kind of come in, and I think he can be that kind of guy.
Yeah, Dallas started pulling off players that I've never heard about, because they were so injured. They're starting to put in guys that really, Kiviranta specifically, really became the NHL player that I think he will be going forward this playoffs. So having more guys like that is not a bad thing for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Last pick of the draft, or for
Now,
round one.
San Jose. Now, San Jose sucks. They're not in a good position right now.
Yeah.
They're core forwards that they're either like in their prime right now or they've passed it and it's over. You know? And like for their defensemen, it's their long pack. I don't think Carlson's. I think he's long past his game. I think Burns is past his prime. I think Vlasic is past his prime. I don't think that I don't see what San Jose. I don't know what they're doing going forward. That being said, I think that this is the pick that Justin Barron goes at. Now, yeah, he's out indefinitely, so he's not. He might not even play at like the start of this coming season. Whenever we get a season, if he gets a season, if he plays, assuming we get one, he might not be playing because he's still out. It's not genetic, but I do see maybe a long-term shoulder injury thing. Who knows? I do see the skepticism behind it, but for me, this was his year where he could prove that he meets that preseason ranking, because at the beginning of the season they're all like, yeah, he just had a really good season, but he didn't play top minutes. He was on a really good team as like a second pairing defenseman. And this year, when he does get those big minutes, even though it's few games, a smaller sample size, I don't think he played up to that level that everybody thought he could. And I don't know if it's because the shoulder injury was bugging him so he couldn't play as well, or if it's because maybe he isn't just going to reach that spot. But I think there's too many questions surrounding him for him to go higher. But also, I see a lot of he's really good. I can't see him going any lower.
Yeah, I don't see him falling out of the first round.
Mm-hmm. And this is a really tough pick for me because I think San Jose fucking sucks, and I do think there are a lot of really good other choices here that I think you and I are going to talk about for the second round.
Yeah. So for me, I have a defenseman going to San Jose as well. I have William Wallinder going 31 for San Jose. Now, William Wallinder is probably the best skating defenseman in the draft, not named Jamie Drysdale.
Mm-hmm.
He's an incredible skater. It's so smooth. It's so good to watch. But he has almost zero puck skills. His shot is a little suspect. His first pass is a little suspect. He's obviously average at this point in the draft, and I could see him slipping into second. But because he's 6'4" and moves so beautifully on the ice, not just his speed, but his edges, his agility, the way he moves.
Find at that size on a defenseman, best skating you're gonna find in for years. You're uncomparable.
He's got a lot of poise with the puck too, but with what I've watched, like the way he will go up and then will turn away, and we'll reset the play. He's very mobile in his defensive zone. If the San Jose Sharks can teach him a little bit more, and he can develop an extra skill, right? He doesn't have to be everything at this point of the draft. If he is a big, strong, agile defenseman that has a good first pass, but doesn't have a very good shot, I think you could really, really do well if you pick him here late in the first round or early in the second. You're not always going to get a guy who has everything. And William Wallinder is a perfect example of that, where because his skating is so elite, in my opinion, he can't drop out of the first round for me.
Yeah, the upside, because of his skating and his commitment, he's very hard, very driven. I think it's too good to overlook. So I think my complaints about him are that his biggest skill is his speed, and he's good with the puck. He's a puck moving defenseman, but in the SHL, it might be one of the lowest physical games. There's not a lot of hitting.
Yeah.
And because you're on the European ice, you have a lot of space. His game as a puck-moving defenseman with a lot of speed is exemplified by the SHL. And I don't know how he can. I would have him a lot higher because of that upside if I thought he was able to translate that to the NHL, because I think a lot of comparisons were made between Wallinder and Grands. I know you don't have Grands in your first round.
I do not.
But for the difference is that while Wallinder will try and like skate with the puck, Grands will pass. And in an NHL game that's super tight, Grands can make a pass in any zone that's really tight, thread the needle, while Wallinder has been known to try and take the puck himself and 1v1 deke the defenseman and lose it. He's like maybe too confident in his scoring with not enough puck handling to, make it as like, I think he's just missing something that I think that works well in the SHL, but can't translate as much to the NHL. And for that reason, I have him in the mid-second round.
All right, real quick, because we're running almost 2 hours here, record time. I don't want to spend too much longer. Real quick, some honorable mentions. Guys who you think could slip into the first round, but you have in the second.
All right, I got how many do I get of each?
As many as you want to say.
I like a guy that I'm not sure about, Tristan Robbins, led a line by himself, good on both ends, always giving 110%. I don't know what his upside is, but I do like his game. And then another forward, Zion Nybeck. He's a guy who came into the season at 5'6", 5'8" now, and I think he's way underrated because of his size. I think he might be the steal of the draft. And for defensemen, I really like two. There's Yan Kuznetsov, who's playing for the University of Connecticut. He's got a high hockey IQ, good vision. He's sometimes watching a little bit too much, but he's in the right spot and just needs to make the right choice on when to pinch and do the thing. And that'll come with him with good coaching, good NHL time. I really like his game, Yan Kuznetsov. And the second D is Shakir Mukhamadullin. I hope I'm saying that right. I love this guy's hands. He needs to control a little bit more puck control on the breakout, but he's a beautiful skater, loves to jump in on the play. He's big, he's defensive, he's physical, he's got the hustle, and I think he's got a really high, really good ceiling. I compare him to Dmitry Orlov. Those are my second round honorable mentions that I think could maybe break into the first round.
Some honorable mentions for me, two guys that I didn't have in my first round that you did, Brendan Brisson and Helge Grans. I could, realistically see them jumping in. I think, I have Forrester and Wallinder, and you have Grans and Brisson. So I could 100% see them jumping in. Other guys we didn't mention, Tyler Clevin, Ryan O'Rourke, other defensemen that could sneak into the later half of the first round. A guy like O'Rourke, I could even see going a little higher. I wouldn't be surprised if they, Colorado or something picked him at 24, 25. Sam Colangelo and Ozzy Weisblatt are the other two forwards that I wanted to mention.
But it was really hard for me not to mention him in my honorable mention.
Yeah, I really like him. He seems to be projecting almost as a third round pick.
I have him ranked, him and Tristan Robbins, right after each other. I think they're really comparable players, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's a Weisblatt. I was tough picking which one for my honorable mention. I'm glad you mentioned Ozzy Weisblatt. I think he can go high in the second round. I love his playmaking, love his commitment effort, and I love he does not hit hard, but he doesn't care. He'll hit you anyway, and I fucking love it.
All right. If there's anyone still watching this video, thank you guys so much for getting this far. We talked a lot about a lot of these players, and we went into some real depth. And I'm really excited to see what happens and how close we are, and if Alex is more close to his mock draft than me, if we're both just totally wrong and we have no idea what we're talking about. I'm so excited to watch the draft. We're going to live stream it. I mentioned at the top of this video. So come join us then. We'll hang out. We'll watch some draft and see how we do. Is there anything you want to say there, Alex?
Just that I forgot to mention, I like that we both picked defensemen for San Jose at 31st.
Yeah, San Jose's prospect cupboard is bare.
So a lot of times when we pick different players for the same reason, just because of order, we're like, I liked Holloway for, like a lot of the same things where we see a lot of teams needing a lot of the same things. And I think it's interesting how we saw different players filling those roles.
Yeah, I'm also glad we didn't have the same players throughout the whole draft. I was a little concerned about that because we do think a little bit similar, but I'm glad that like I had Rodion Amirov way later than you did, and you had Jack Quinn way later than I did. So I'm happy that we did that. Yeah.
I'm happy the Guley versus Schneider. That was an interesting one. I can't wait to see how that one turns out at the NHL level.
Yeah. And obviously, even if when we get to the draft, we won't know where these players are going to end up until maybe 10 years from now, right?
10, 15 years from now, I'll be looking back at this and be like, whoa.
Whoa, were we really wrong about Sam Colangelo? Or like something.
Maybe you didn't take Ty Smolenic at third. Hello.
Yeah, Ty Smolenic, biggest steal.
Oh, what a great name. I wish he was better, because I really wish I could say that I believe someone would take that Ty Smolenic, but mid-second round pick. I like his game, but not a first rounder.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll just leave it off with thanks guys for watching again. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. We'll hopefully get a lot more videos out soon. With the off season, it's gonna be really busy, and hopefully we get some good content out for you. We've been off for a little bit, but I'd like to come back strong now. So yeah, we don't always have Pokemon on this channel, but
no, but we are always dope. Thank you so much for watching.